down into Wales and the West Country. A few wintry showers also possible across southeast England. Elsewhere, a widespread hard frost and also some icy stretches, so take care on your commute. And then through the day, we see further snow showers, particularly across eastern parts of England and parts of Wales, down into the West Country, Northern Ireland, and also northern Scotland. So warnings remain in force for snow and ice. Temperatures really struggling, not rising much above freezing for much of the UK, some places staying below. Another very cold start on Tuesday, further snow and ice in places. A weather system bringing an organised mix of rain, sleet and snow into parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we head through the day. Best of the sunshine across central, southeastern parts of England, and staying cold into Wednesday as well. Perhaps becoming a little less cold as we head towards Thursday, but also wetter.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello from the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland. We're on an amazing Arctic adventure to celebrate our greatest cash giveaway, a simply stunning £85,000. And in 2026, we're giving you the chance to win it all.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Very good evening to you. It is 6 o'clock here in the GB newsroom. Our headlines. The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says America is not at war with Venezuela, a day after ousting its president in a military attack. Nicolas Maduro and Cilia Flores' wife have been detained in New York on narco-trafficking charges. They could appear in court tomorrow. Venezuela's vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, has been named the country's interim leader. Now, it's being reported the US strikes on Venezuela, carried out by the Department of War, killed 40 people in the country. But Marco Rubio insists they didn't need congressional approval for the operation.
It wasn't necessary because this was not an invasion. We didn't occupy a country. This was an arrest operation. This was a law enforcement operation. He was arrested on the ground in Venezuela by FBI agents, read his rights, and removed from the country. Obviously, this was not a friendly territory. So in order to arrest him, we had to ask the Department of War to become involved in this operation. The Department of War went in, they hit anything that was a threat to the agents that were going in to arrest them, and they hit anything that was a threat on the way out, and they hit anything that was a threat to them while they were on the ground. And that was a very limited and targeted operation.
16 more victims from the bar fire that killed 40 people on New Year's Day have been identified. The youngest person was a Swiss girl aged 14 with 9 others aged under 18. It brings the total to 24 confirmed people of those who died in the resort of Crans, Montana. Meanwhile, a man who died helping 2 people in the sea off the East Yorkshire coast has been named as 67-year-old Mark Ratcliffe. His family have paid tribute, saying Mark was a true selfless hero with a heart of gold who was cruelly taken while trying to help others. The 2 other victims have just been named. They've been confirmed as 45-year-old Sarah Keeling and her 15-year-old daughter Grace Keeling. They were in the water when Mr. Ratcliffe tried to help them. Uninsured drivers are set to face higher fines and tougher penalties under new government plans. A road safety strategy to be announced next week includes proposals to double fixed penalty notices to £600 and increase the number of penalty points for rule breakers. It's part of the government strategy to bring down the cost of living by reducing the cost of car insurance. And we're being told to expect travel disruption tomorrow as people return to work and school after the Christmas break. Numerous yellow warnings for snow and ice have been issued in each of the 4 nations. Temperatures, we understand, could get as low as -10 in some parts of Scotland and Wales. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines. I'll be back with more at 7 o'clock.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good morning and welcome to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. We're 4 days into 2026 and President Trump has already made his mark on the year, carrying out large-scale strikes on Venezuela and sending a clear threat to the Iranian regime. We'll be discussing that and much more on our first show of the year. Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, Darren Jones, will be here, as only 9% of the public think 2026 will play well for Britain. Can Sir Keir Starmer really turn this government around? I'll also be speaking to Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel. I'll get her reaction to events in Venezuela and Iran. Plus, does she regret granting citizenship to Egyptian activist Alaa Abdel Fattah? Deputy Leader of Reform UK and MP for Boston and Skegness, Richard Tice, will join me as Nigel Farage vows to double or quits on the local election spending £5 million, I believe. What does Reform UK need to see in May to constitute a successful year? The Liberal Democrats are launching a fresh bid to force the government into a vote on the UK's membership of the Customs Union. Yes, it's 2016 all over again, folks. Cabinet Office spokesperson for the party, Lisa Smart, will join me later on the show. As ever, an absolutely packed 90 minutes of politics to come, so do not even think of going anywhere. Our usual Sunday morning paper review will still come, but joining me now is the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, Darren Jones. Mr Jones, lovely to see you this morning. Happy New Year to you. I'm intrigued by the fact that the PM has shown support for the anti-Semite and self-confessed racist, Alaa Abdel Fattah, but not persecuted Iranians. Why would that be?
I'm not sure I understand the premise of your question, Camilla, but firstly, Happy New Year. It's nice to be with you. I mean, look, your question on Mr. Al Fattah, I think you're referring to the tweets that he posted a number of years ago. The Prime Minister's already said that it's regretful that the government hadn't seen those when decisions were taken. This was not just an issue under this Labour administration, of course, it was an issue under the Conservatives as well. I think it was Priti Patel as Home Secretary that originally granted British citizenship to Mr. Al Fattah. And as is normally the case, when a British citizen is being detained in those types of circumstances in any country around the world, consular services are made available to them. But of course, his views on those tweets are abhorrent. The government obviously does not support them in any way.
Why then is number 10 saying that he's still welcome in the UK when he's tweeted the following? That all Zionists, including civilians, he wished death upon. He said, I'm a racist, I don't like white people, so pee off. He's said about how his heroes have always killed colonialists. And yet, when asked, when all of this was revealed, number 10 said they still welcomed him to the UK. And I asked the point in reference to the Iranians who are being persecuted right now, because the PM has still kept that tweet on his X feed and yet not posted anything about persecuted Iranians. And I find that quite surprising.
Oh, I see. Well, look, with Mr. Al Fattah, the important point is that he was granted citizenship by the last Conservative administration. That doesn't mean that we're supportive of the comments he made. As I said, they're abhorrent and they're not.
Well, you've welcomed him into the UK. That sounds pretty supportive.
Well, he was a citizen. Forgive me, this earpiece is just falling out slightly. He's a citizen, and that's why he was treated as a citizen. And we'd be wrong for the government to revoke citizenship from people based on their tweets.
So he's still welcome?
Even if they are as abhorrent as they were in those circumstances. Well, he's a British citizen, and so...
But the word welcome was used.
As I say,
there was an effusive post on X
well, as in,
by the Prime Minister welcoming this anti-Semite to the UK. The word welcome was used. Was that the right word to use under the circumstances as we now understand them?
Well, you know that the tweet that was issued before the Prime Minister had been shown the tweets of Mr. Al Fattah that you referred to, and the Prime Minister said this morning and previously that he regrets the fact that the government hadn't surfaced those tweets to him or the Foreign Secretary, or indeed the previous Prime Ministers or Foreign Secretaries under the Conservative administration.
This bloke was tweeting the stuff from 2010, and I will ask Priti Patel about it, don't worry, she granted him citizenship. But what does it say about number 10, that all of these tweets surface literally with a basic Google check by journalists within 2 minutes, and yet our own Prime Minister doesn't know this guy's history and gives him a warm welcome back to Britain?
Well, you're right that this was an issue that shouldn't have happened. It was a failing at some point in the process in government. That's why the Foreign Secretary has asked the Permanent Secretary at the Foreign Office to answer questions as to why this happened in the first place. Ministers will have understandably assumed that these checks would have been done by officials as part of the process, as a process we inherited as a Labour administration. When it occurred to us that that had not happened, as I say, the Foreign Secretary put in place a review to understand why, to make sure that changes can be put in place to ensure it doesn't
so it was a mistake to welcome him back.
The Prime Minister has been very clear that was unacceptable.
It was a mistake for the Prime Minister to welcome him. OK. That was a mistake.
The Prime Minister himself said this morning.
Right.
He said this morning that he regrets the fact that tweet went out and that he wasn't made aware of the previous tweet. Yeah.
No, I would have asked the Prime Minister directly, but he won't do my show, strangely. The PM has claimed that 2026 will see a turn, a corner, and us to feel a sense of hope. Yet a recent YouGov survey reveals that only 9% of the British public think 2026 will be good. Quite staggeringly, 66%, or two-thirds, think that 2025 was a bad year under Labour.
Look, I understand why the public have got a pessimistic view about the future. The Prime Minister does too. Since the banking crisis in 2008, living standards have not improved in the way the public expect them to. And they've been promised time and time again, whether from David Cameron and Nick Clegg, we're all in this together, or from Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, that Brexit was going to transform the UK economy and improve people's living standards. All the way through, they've been promised these types of things and it's not been delivered. So it's totally understandable that the public are angry about that. And they're not sure whether governments are able actually to deliver a better country that improves their living standards. We say that that is not true, that mainstream politics can make a difference to people's lives, and we're absolutely focused on delivering it. And 2026 is going to be a year where people start to feel the benefit of some of the decisions that we started to take in our first 18 months in government.
Really? According to Retail Economics, discretionary income has gone down by 2.1%. According to the Centre for Policy Studies, if you're earning 50 grand, you're going to be 500 quid worse off by the end of this Parliament, despite a 6k increase in wages because of the budget and because of the tax burden and because of the government's out-of-control spending, Darren Jones. So people aren't feeling positive and the statistics don't seem to stand up what you're saying.
So I haven't seen the report you referred to, so I can't comment on its assumptions. But what I can tell you is what the government is doing. In the long run, when you've got to get the economy back on track and firing on all cylinders so that people's pay improves at work and the cost of their mortgage and rent and shopping and energy bills comes down over the long term, we're absolutely focused on that. But of course, at the budget, the Chancellor took a number of decisions to help immediately in the short term. The £150 cut to people's energy bills, which will come onto bills from April this year. The changes to breakfast clubs at school, funded childcare, places at nursery for working families, the national living wage over £900 a year for the lowest earners, the triple lock giving pensioners I think over £600 extra this year, freezes on rail and bus fares and prescription charges, all of the things that government has a direct ability to affect, we have put in place measures to try to limit the cost of living. Ultimately, it will be about having stability in the economy and growth that can bring inflation down, and you'll know that inflation has been cut 6 times already under this Labour administration.
One could argue there was nowhere else for inflation to come but down. Just on schooling, you mentioned breakfast clubs there. We learned today that 105 private schools have closed as a result of Labour's VAT policy. That's affected 25,000 pupils. How on earth can it be a good policy for a government to have closed down more than 100 schools, making teachers redundant and moving pupils from the schools and classes and classmates that they enjoy and like?
So again, I'm not sure what evidence you're referring to, Camilla, so I can't comment on it.
It's the chief of the Independent Schools Council. All the stuff I'm referring to is in the Sunday papers.
Well, forgive me, I've not had a chance to read them because I've been doing TV this morning, but the government data that I've seen shows there's been minimal movement between, well, you're a better person than I am, Camilla. I apologise for not being able to multitask sufficiently. But look, the government data shows that there's been very limited movement between private schools and public schools. And
105 have closed down.
Should be charged on fee-paying schools. I don't recognise the data is the point I'm making.
Well, that's from the head of the Independent Schools Council, who is presumably across the data.
Sure, but
if 105 private schools have closed down and Labour has been responsible for closing down schools and moving 25,000 pupils out of said schools, then that is not a policy to be proud of, is it, Darren Jones?
Look, there's a number of schools closed before the VAT change happened because they weren't profitable, because they were too small. I don't know what the circumstances were of those 105 schools, but it was a very clear manifesto commitment to add VAT to fee-paying schools, to redistribute that money into state schools, to support the majority of children in our country with additional money for teaching in the state system. That's what the public voted for, and that's what the government implemented. And I would just challenge you a little as well. At the start, you said that inflation couldn't go any further up. It was over 11% under Liz Truss and the Conservatives. It's now down to 3.2%, which is much, much lower than it was under the Conservatives. And so I think that, the public recognise that their mortgage bills, their rent bills, they're starting to not rise as fast as they've done in the past because of the stability that Labour's brought back to the economy. And there's going to be more of that coming in the year ahead.
On the subject of inflation, it's nowhere is it higher than in Venezuela. I take it the Prime Minister is full-throated in his 100% support of President Trump and his actions against Maduro. I know he's held up as a hero to some on the left, including Jeremy Corbyn, but at the end of the day, the guy shouldn't have been in office, should be removed, and Presumably you're 100% backing Trump on this, are you, Darren Jones?
So we've always agreed that President Maduro was an illegitimate president. The UK government sanctioned him. We sanctioned him as a Labour government only last year because of the actions that he took against the people of Venezuela. So I don't think anybody's going to be sad about President Maduro no longer being in office in Venezuela, that's for sure.
But you back Trump 100%, do you?
Well, the UK was not involved in any way with the.
Well, you must have a position on our closest ally.
From the United States.
Do you back Trump 100%
well,
or not?
All I'm saying is that we were not. Well, it didn't matter one way or another because we weren't involved. This wasn't an operation that the UK armed forces were part of. Well,
yes,
we
what does that say about the special relationship?
The UK, I think it's totally fine. This was a independent action of the United States of America. Congress itself wasn't informed, let alone allies or third countries, because it was a individual action of the United States administration. If the UK were involved operationally, then of course we would expect to be part of that conversation naturally, but we were not involved in any way.
Okay, but you must have an opinion.
We were not part of discussions on the operational detail.
I know, but finally, Darren Jones, you must have an opinion as to whether Donald Trump has acted in accordance with international law and correctly here. Do you back President Trump on this or not? Yes or no?
Well, that's a question to the US administration. It's for the president.
No, it's a question to you.
For the operation they undertook. I'm not.
No, that's my question to you, Darren Jones. You're the Prime Minister's right-hand man.
Sure,
do you back? What do you back? What Donald Trump has done? Yes or no?
Donald Trump is the President of the United States of America, Camilla. It's for him to set out the legal basis and his decisions for the operations he took. The UK was not
I'm asking if you support it. It's such a straightforward question, Darren Jones. I'm asking you, as the Prime Minister's right-hand man, whether you support what Donald Trump has done to Maduro in Venezuela. Yes or no?
I'm giving you a straightforward answer, Camilla, and it doesn't matter one way or another, because this was an operation conducted by the United States. The UK was not involved in any way. Questions about international law are for the American administration to explain in terms of the legal basis of their operation, and for any challenge to that application to be conducted through international courts, not through the British government.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you one more time, Darren Jones, because I don't find that a credible answer. It's perfectly legitimate for me to ask you whether you support our main ally, the US, and US President Trump, with whom Keir Starmer apparently has a close personal relationship, let alone the special relationship. I'm merely asking you a simple question. We've all seen how this played out over the weekend. We can all form an opinion about it in this studio or beyond. What is your opinion? Does the Prime Minister, does the Labour government support President Trump in what he has done in Venezuela? Yes or no?
The Prime Minister's been very clear that we did not recognise the presidency of President Maduro. That's why the UK government sanctioned him and has long called for a peaceful transition to a democratically elected president in Venezuela. On the question of American operations, it's not a question for the UK as to whether America should undertake its operations or not. It's an independent, sovereign question of the American administration. It's not for the British government to provide a running commentary on the actions of other countries.
It's not a running commentary, it's just a yes or no question, but I don't think you're willing to answer it, so we may as well leave it there. But Darren Jones, thank you very much indeed for joining me this morning.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Yeah, so when I was 5 years old, one of my family members, friends, was looking after me one day, like babysitting me. And then on that day, it was a well-trusted friend of our family, was babysitting me and took me upstairs and he raped and abused me. So from then on, I've suffered and suffered. One of the things that he did say to me was that he would kill me or hurt me in my sleep. So ever since then, I've always suffered with PTSD, night terrors. It never goes away.
It took 20 years for you to face
20 years, yeah, to ever come out about what had ever happened to me. My parents didn't know. I didn't tell them anything.
Because a lot of men in your position, a lot of boys in position, they'd rather just take the burden of shame on. That comes at a great, can come at a great cost.
Yeah, lots of friends and family, and I was just scared to tell them, you know, because obviously as well, if I did ever say anything about it, he was going to come and get me. So I managed to find an organisation which is charity run called Arch Teesside, which is near where I live, and I went to go see them. And my therapy at the time, the guy was called Dave Taylor. And he was a big guy, full of tattoos, and you know, when you see somebody, you think, how am I going to open up to somebody of this man, you know? And I hit it off like straight away. And I've always told him, this is what I love doing. I love going to the gym. I want to step on stage by the time I'm 40, and then that's what I went and did.
And look at you then.
I mean, what modelling shots, yeah.
You said in your book there, hold your book up, people want to get a copy of this book. Tell them what it's called, mate.
Buy the book.
What's the book called, mate? Tell them.
It's called Breaking the Silence, A Champion's Journey.
And this is it. And your message that you say, if you help one other person out there to channel their pain into purpose, mission accomplished, mate.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Joining me now is Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel. Dame Priti, lovely to see you this morning. Happy New Year to you. Perhaps you can answer a question that Darren Jones was strangely unable to. Do the Conservatives back what US President Donald Trump has done in Venezuela?
Well, I've been very clear already that we are not shedding any tears whatsoever now that Maduro has gone. He was an oppressive tyrant, a terrible, terrible dictator that has done dreadful things to his people and country. And Camilla, I think the context of how America has got to this position is also important. And I don't even think our government has recognised that. You know, in terms of the drug trafficking, their own national security policy, America has been really, you know, paving this course of action for some time, basically. Now, whether or not we agree or disagree with it, you're speaking to someone that when I was in government actually worked with America on stopping cocaine and illegal drugs from Latin America coming to our country. So, you know, there'll be a lot of detail here, which I still don't think we fully know and understand. Lots of people are going on about the legals, but there'll be more information, I think, that will have to come out. What I think is a little bit alarming, to be really candid, is that the British government doesn't seem to know much about what has happened, and they clearly haven't put the calls in yet. So we'll be asking these questions of the government when Parliament returns tomorrow. And, you know, I think this is a big moment, actually, for the UK-US relationship. It's apparently a special relationship, but again, you know, we've not exactly been informed on much of the detail thus far.
OK, so I appreciate what you're saying about an absence of detail, and of course conversations need to take place. But on the basis of what we do know, and let's be honest, the Sunday papers are full of detail about Maduro's past, why this has happened, all of the economic problems that the Venezuelan people have been facing in recent years. We also know how the operation was executed. Yes, concerns have been raised about a potential breach of international law. But just to put exactly the same question to you that I put to Darren Jones that he couldn't answer, do you support what the US president has done, yes or no?
Well, we support the fact that Maduro has now gone. His regime was awful,
but
so we support
Trump
that.
has done it.
Well, you know, that's to be quite frank, as I've said already, I think that was on the cards from the action that America has been undertaking in recent months. So, you know, we are pleased that he is no longer there. We are not losing any tears or sleep over this at all. What I think is important, Camilla, is what next? This is the question. We've just seen an audacious military operation which was executed with great precision, and America, clearly, they're very proud of that. But it's about what comes next, and that's the political questioning that is required about whether or not Venezuela will now move on that pathway of democracy, freedom and also good governance. It's a deeply corrosive country with corruption at every single level there. And even a VP who's just been sworn in to become president, there are sanctions against her in Europe and with the American administration. So this is not going to be a walk in the park. And I think we all have to go in with our eyes wide open about the next steps and what this means. And also there are British nationals that live in Venezuela too. So we want to ensure that obviously the people of Venezuela, they get their, not just say their freedoms, but they are put on the path to good governance and freedom in the right way.
We'll move on to domestic matters in just a moment, but do you think that the Prime Minister's reaction to events in Iran has been proportionate, in the sense that I pointed out to Darren Jones that post welcoming Alaa Abdel Fattah back into the country remains on his X feed, and yet he has posted nothing at all about Iranian protesters trying to overthrow the Ayatollah?
I did see that, Camilla, and I agree with you. I completely agree with you on that. I've written an article today making that exact point. When we see the protesters in Iran, they're dying for their freedom. And that might be a difficult concept for us to comprehend. They are fighting and dying for their freedom. Look at the tyrannical regime with the Ayatollahs in Tehran. And it is extraordinary with the level of protests that we've seen. We haven't seen protests of this nature, I think, since 2022, when we saw the most appalling brutality against women in particular for not fully covering their hair. So I think this is a really big moment, actually. It could be a crossroads. It could be a turning point. There are all sorts of issues going on in Iran, people protesting for different reasons. The big reasons right now are obviously the currency, the collapse of the economy. They've had a water crisis, but it's a terrorist regime. They sponsor proxies, terrorist proxies around the world. They're a country that hurts us. They're a threat to our national security. So how can we have a Prime Minister and a Labour government that sits in silence and sits on their hand at this particular moment? I just don't think that's acceptable.
I mentioned Mr. El Fattah there. Now, he was granted citizenship, I believe, on your watch as Home Secretary. Bearing in mind what we now know he has said about Zionists, about Jews, about our own police force, about white people, do you regret that decision?
Well, of course, absolutely. And my party's been clear that he should be stripped of his citizenship. It's important to understand the past concept. These cases did not come to me directly. There was a ruling, an ECHR ruling, I think it was actually before I became Home Secretary in 2019, that made citizenship cases of his particular nature and similar cases where citizenship was granted through the mother. It did not go through. They would not need to go through what is the good life or good character test. That has to change. I think it speaks to the big fundamental changes my party is putting forward now, such as leaving the ECHR, which means that cases like this would not occur again, where citizenship would not be granted in this particular way. So what he has said is absolutely appalling, and that is why we're calling for his citizenship to be revoked.
So you're saying that the way he was granted citizenship didn't take into account character and therefore didn't include these extremely concerning posts? Because I think from the GB News audience's point of view, they cannot fathom how a man who is very easily revealed to have been an anti-Semite and a self-confessed racist, journalists found these tweets within minutes, how he could have still been let into the country and indeed granted citizenship and then welcomed back by successive governments if this record was so easily available. What were the intelligence services doing?
Camilla, that is a fair point. I completely understand that. And there is no defence for that whatsoever. The fact of the matter is this was down to an ECHR ruling back in 2019. That's my understanding of the case and the technicalities behind it. That is clearly unacceptable. I do think it speaks to the fundamental issues, not just about how our system of governance doesn't fully work in the interests of, even ministers of the day making decisions about our country. But the really important point is this is why we do need to continue to press the case to leave the ECHR, which my party is doing. And do not forget, we've done the policy work, the legal basis already as to how we would leave the ECHR to make sure situations like this do not occur again.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast, and it's staying cold over the next few days. Very cold tonight with widespread frost and ice and further snow in places as well. A cold northerly flow across the UK Arctic air, bringing in that bitter weather across much of the UK. For this evening, temperatures already below freezing for many of us. Heavy snow showers across northern parts of Scotland and Amber Met Office warning for snow here. We could see another 20 to 30 centimetres falling through the night into tomorrow morning. Elsewhere, icy stretches, wintry showers and temperatures falling down to -5, -6 in towns and cities, perhaps even down to -10 in one or two spots in the countryside. So widespread cold start to Monday morning. A difficult commute for those setting off across northern parts of Scotland with that amber warning in force. Heavy snowfall, some strong winds as well, drifting that snow around. The central belt brighter, but a cold, icy start. Wintry showers for Northern Ireland, Northern England, down into Wales and the West Country. A few wintry showers also possible across southeast England. Elsewhere, a widespread hard frost and also some icy stretches, so take care on your commute. And then through the day, we see further snow showers, particularly across eastern parts of England and parts of Wales, down into the West Country, Northern Ireland, and also northern Scotland. So warnings remain in force for snow and ice. Temperatures really struggling, not rising much above freezing for much of the UK, some places staying below. Another very cold start on Tuesday, further snow and ice in places. A weather system bringing an organised mix of rain, sleet and snow into parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we head through the day. Best of the sunshine across central, southeastern parts of England, and staying cold into Wednesday as well. Perhaps becoming a little less cold as we head towards Thursday, but also wetter.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Joining me now is the Deputy Leader of Reform UK and MP for Boston and Skegness, Richard Tice. Right, let's get into the serious issue of the day, which is Trump's assault on Venezuela and Maduro. Did you catch the Darren Jones interview earlier?
Yes, I did. I mean, it's just extraordinary. He just won't answer a basic question.
I mean, is it a difficult question for the government? Do they support Trump or not?
Well, when it suits, but obviously they've got their own left-wingers to appease, and the communists in their own party and the hard socialists don't like it. Look, this is good news for the West. Who it's uncomfortable for is the socialists and the communists and people like Putin and the Chinese communist regime, because they've been supporting Maduro, who's a huge supporter of Putin, and quite rightly, America has said, actually, he's a threat to our US interests, and that's why they've done it. They're entitled to do it under US domestic law.
Richard, it's about oil, it's about links to China.
It's all about the US national security interest, and that actually is also in our interest. For example, hopefully it'll disrupt the vast amount of cocaine that comes out of Venezuela, comes to the UK and Europe. I'm not saying it's going to solve it, but this was not a legitimate president. This was an illegitimate, brutal drugs lord.
Is it a legitimate way to remove him? I mean,
it was a very successful way to remove him.
Of course it was successful, but there are going to be concerns. As Priti Patel said, there are legal questions here.
Yeah, there's legal questions. Within US domestic law, it's clearly legal. The Commander-in-Chief can do that. Within the UN international law, Article 51, you can legally apply self-defence. There's a question as to whether or not other states were unwilling or unable to to do the necessary. Look, lawyers can argue it. The reality is that the people who will be anxious and uncomfortable about this are the communists in China and Putin in Russia.
It's interesting, isn't it, that the Prime Minister didn't seem to have any advance warning. Do you know if Nigel Farage has had any conversations?
You wouldn't expect them to. I mean,
No.
Congress didn't get advance warning. If you want to keep something secret, you've actually basically not got to tell people.
OK. Let's move on to El Fattah. I just asked Priti Patel about why he was granted citizenship on her watch. She's made the point that at the time that he was granted citizenship, they couldn't take into account of his character, and therefore that vetting process that should have taken place didn't, although...
And what she didn't tell you was that it was one of her own colleagues, Caroline Noakes, as immigration minister in 2019, who changed the law. And because the Tories have been so supine and feeble on the ECHR, they decided to remove good character. And this is on the Tories' watch. This is the Tories' fault. And then you've got a Prime Minister now who is welcoming as a top priority for the United Kingdom to welcome an extreme, racist, anti-Semite thug into this country.
Well, apparently
it's
he's
utterly
still
appalling.
welcome, according to Darren Jones.
Well, let's see what happens in Parliament this week, because I think there's going to be a lot of discussion.
But then
you've
said he should be stripped of his citizenship and deported.
Yes.
I mean, they're fine words, but how would that actually work in practice? Egypt isn't going to take this bloke back.
They haven't got a choice. He's a citizen. He's a citizen of Egypt. And, we have relationships with these...
Under the current circumstances, while we remain in the ECHR and all the rest of it, this is typical of reform, isn't it? Sort of making a lot of noise. Yeah, deport him, strip him of his... How?
Very simple. You've got to arrest him, remove his citizenship and remove him back to Egypt.
And you don't think there's going to be a queue of lefty lawyers trying to keep him in the country?
Frankly...
And masses and masses of lawfare?
We will deal with that.
Well, you won't deal with it. You're not in power.
Well,
I mean, I'm
that's
saying you make these claims. You make these claims while you're in pseudo-opposition. In reality, it won't work.
Wrong. We've clearly said we're going to leave the ECHR, which the Tories blather about, but they won't do.
Yes.
And we've clearly said that we will detain and deport people who are against our national interest, of which he is clearly one.
I know.
So, yes, we would detain and we would deport.
Reform. Yeah, OK, but you've said he should be stripped of his citizenship and deported now.
And
That's not practical, is it? Because it's not going to happen.
No, I disagree. I believe that it is, with strong, clear leadership. I think it can be done, it should be done, and it must be done.
OK, so we've got this MRP poll. Well, have I got the paperwork in front of me? Yes, I think I have. No, I haven't. That's the paper review. Here we are. Suggesting that you are going to win a 55-seat majority. It gives you 381 seats on the basis of a 31% vote share. Isn't the problem that Reform is going to have, should this play out, that you...
That's not a problem. It means we've got a majority in order to save the country and make people better off again and control our borders. That's not a problem. That's a good thing.
You're going to need a stonking majority for some of the legislative reform that you're proposing, right?
Yes.
But isn't this landslide, if you get it, a 31%, just as loveless as Labour's? Isn't this problematic, bearing in mind that Corbyn, of all people, got a 40% vote share in 2017? 31%.
Well, that's why we're going to keep battling. That's why we're going to campaign hard for these mayor elections, where we're hoping to do very well up and down the country, where we're still allowed to have elections because the Tories and Labour are trying to cancel them all over the place. But we'll be focusing very hard on that. And if we achieve that, that'll give extra strength and momentum. And we're saying to people, if you want real reform, if you want to save the country, then you actually got to vote reform.
But isn't the electoral maths actually showing that you're going backwards? So we had a situation where... Hang on, let me just give you the stats. Find out now, summer puts you at 35%. Now you're at 30%. We had an average of you being around 30 in the summer. You're now down to 28. So unfortunately, you've peaked too soon, Richard Tice.
No, we're just having a gentle pause for breath.
Oh, sorry.
We're giving the others a little bit. We're giving the others a little bit of a chance. We don't want to, we don't want to destroy them too early.
No.
They'll still feel able to sort of be in the game, but the reality is we're going to keep moving forwards.
Yeah, your average has fallen from 32% in October to 28%
The higher you go, the harder it gets to go ever higher, and you can't go up in a straight line.
You're not going higher, you're going lower.
We're pausing for breath, and then we're going to keep moving forward.
No, you're declining.
We're pausing for breath.
So if you were a swimmer, you were doing really well, you were front
I'm in the down point of the breaststroke.
Now you're under the water, you haven't got your goggles on.
That's literally how fast swimmers, that's how you do it. With your goggles on, you go underwater, you accelerate forwards, and then you come up again.
Please, hang on a minute, to be serious for a moment, you can't be pleased that your average has fallen now by 4%. Yes, you have got the Greens and others nipping at your heels.
We haven't got the Greens nipping at our heels. We're at about 28, 30, 31. The Greens are down at 15, 16, with a guy who thinks he can enlarge parts of the women's body by just looking at it. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Look, I'm very pleased that we're leading all of these polls by over 10%.
I tell you where you're not leading, on the economy. So Nigel Farage has now suggested scrapping the OBR, which people might have some sympathy for, but they may ask themselves, well, how do we then trust you on the economy?
Well, who runs the country?
You're not
is it the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, or is it the OBR? It should be elected ministers.
I tell you who isn't trusted in the economy, and that's Reform. 41% of Britons trust them at least a fair amount on immigration, according to YouGov from the autumn, but on the economy, only 25 to 29% trust them. In fact, the Tories, of all people, are trusted more on the economy than Reform. That's a massive problem, isn't it?
Look, we've always got work to do. We're always looking forwards, always going to keep pushing on. We're not complacent on anything, but here's the point. We are trusted to save this country, and that's why we're leading in 180, Camilla, 180 national polls, and the average I think is about 10%.
What is Reform's economic policy? Because I think the GB News audience is confused. You know, you claim to be Thatcherite, then you're talking about renationalising industries, then you're talking about welfare increases.
It's very simple. We'll make people better off by cutting wasteful spending, cutting daft regulation.
But not tax anymore.
Well, hang on. You do those two things so that you can prove to the bond market, who, because of the Tories' mismanagement of the economy, raising debt, because of Labour's mismanagement of the economy, raising debt, the bond markets basically are in charge. So we've got to satisfy them, cut wasteful spending, cut daft regulations. That motivates entrepreneurs. Then we can afford performance-related tax cuts.
But isn't the tearing up of your contract with the people, which you presented to the public last year, before the last general election...
Well, it's a year and a half ago now, but let's remember, we didn't win that election, Camilla.
It's now been torn up.
We didn't win that committee. That was relevant at the time. The people said thanks, but no thanks.
Isn't that emblematic of Reform? It's all talk and no trousers. You put these promises in a people's contract, and then Nigel Farage goes, oh, no, I don't think we've got the money for this. And then you have to say, sorry, we changed our mind. You do realise that there's no GDP growth. You do realise... I do realise that.
Since the election, the government has borrowed over £200 billion. In fact, I think £250 billion. So the finances are in a dire state, and only Reform will cut wasteful spending, cut daft regulations, so that we can get the economy moving again, get people feeling better off in their pockets, and that's when you can afford tax cuts.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Temperatures above average across parts of Greece at the moment, but still some heavy showers and thunderstorms across parts of Spain. Also down towards the Canary Islands, Madeira, seeing some strong winds and showery rain too. Rain falling as snow over the mountains across parts of Spain, across into Italy as well. Further rain here around the coast. Temperatures around 12 or 13 Celsius. Something a little drier towards Greece there, and temperatures above average, and it remains so here for the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Joining me now is the Cabinet Office spokesperson for the Liberal Democrats, Lisa Smart. Miss Smart, lovely to see you this morning. Happy New Year to you. I think it's your debut on my show, so welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, and a Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you so much. Now, the Liberal Democrats appear to be on a quest to rejoin the customs union. Tell me, Miss Smart, in what way is this either Liberal or democratic?
So what we're calling for is, in the upcoming legislation that the government's bringing forward about the EU reset bill, which we're expecting in the next few weeks, we're calling for the UK to be on a path to join a customs union, negotiate a customs union with the EU. This is the biggest lever that the Prime Minister could pull to generate growth in the UK. It would reduce all that red tape that leaving the EU brought about, leaving the single market, leaving the customs union brought about, made it harder for UK businesses to trade with our European neighbours. It would generate growth in a way that no other measure would take. And so we're calling on particularly backbench Labour MPs to support our efforts as the legislation goes through Parliament. We're calling on them to support us because we hope we can convince the government that this is the right thing to do.
But we get on to the growth claim in just a minute. This is completely anti-democratic. We had the largest mandate in history for Brexit back in 2016. Why on earth are you trying to reverse it? The majority voted to leave the customs union and leave the single market. So this is just a brazen attempt to rejoin the EU, at least a part of it. In what way does this honour the referendum result? It betrays it, doesn't it?
This is a really pragmatic step to rebuild our relationship with the European Union. There are countries out there, I'm thinking about Turkey as a really good example, who have a customs union with the European Union. They're not members of the EU, but they've taken a really pragmatic, sensible decision that getting rid of red tape for businesses, making trade easier, boosts growth and makes it much, much easier for the country to grow so that we can afford all those public services that all the GB News viewers value dearly.
Well, hang on a minute. We would no longer be able to set our own tariffs. We wouldn't be able to negotiate our own deals. We'd be subject to deals negotiated by others that may harm us rather than benefit us. We're going to have to reject all of the trade deals we've already signed. We'll be a rule taker, not a rule maker. In what world can this benefit Britain?
So we're talking about negotiating a bespoke customs union with the European Union. We're not talking about joining an existing one. The deals that the UK government has negotiated, let's talk about India as an example, they would need to be renegotiated. But that deal added 0.13% to GDP. That's such a small amount that the OBR didn't feel it needed to redo any of its calculations. It would pale into insignificance if we were to negotiate a
you've
bespoke
cited one
customs
deal.
union.
We've got deals with the US, New Zealand, Japan, Australia, South Korea, Singapore. We've actually got a trade deal with the EU. You're talking about it not adding anything to growth, but let's have a look at the post-Brexit growth statistics. If the Labour government are to be believed, we've got the fastest growth in the G7 despite Brexit. I mean, Brexit can't be responsible for higher growth when you look at Germany's growth rate since 2020, 2.1%.
Brexit
Why
isn't
don't you ever
responsible for
acknowledge
higher
these
growth.
figures?
Brexit isn't responsible for higher growth. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor are struggling to find the growth that they have said is their key mission of this
We've
government.
got better growth than Germany. So what I'm saying, sorry, just to make my point really clear, Ms. Smart, the Liberal Democrats are constantly blaming Brexit for our sclerotic growth rate. But my point is, if Germany's growth is even less, then it can't have much to do with Brexit, can it?
Recent stats from the House of Commons Library show that there's a £90 billion black hole in our country's finances because of Brexit.
Hang on a minute.
Makes sense.
Hang on a minute.
That if you
Hang on a
put
minute.
barriers into
No, you talked
trade,
about-
it makes trade harder.
No, hang on a minute. You initially talked about GDP growth. You made claims about GDP growth and Brexit's negative effect on it. I'd like you to answer this question. Our GDP growth in real terms is 7.5% since 2020. Germany's is 2.1%. So how on earth can you suggest that Brexit has an effect on our growth rate when we've grown at a higher rate than Germany that's still in the EU? How can you blame Brexit for a growth rate when we've got the highest level of growth, even though it's lower than everyone wants, in the G7?
All members of the European Union will have different growth rates and they have different economies affected by different factors, some global, some local. What I'm saying to you is that our growth would be stronger if we were in a customs union with the European Union, making
But Germany's
trade easier.
isn't. Germany is in a customs union with the EU and its growth rate is a very, very low compared to the UK's, which is low enough. 2.1%. So being in a customs union with the EU is no guarantee of high growth, is it?
So what I'm saying is that it would make trade easier. Good trade makes growth easier, which makes it much easier for the businesses in my constituency to pay their
We've got a
staff
trade
well.
deal with the EU.
I'm talking about a customs union which would get rid of so much paperwork that the business owners in my constituency tell me time after time how it's just so much harder to deal taking goods from the UK over into the EU. This would get rid of the amount of paperwork that I think it's 20 trips to the moon, the number of bits of paperwork that have been added to UK businesses since we left the EU.
You could simplify the bureaucracy without having to rejoin the customs union. But do you understand my point about it being a Brexit betrayal? The clue is in the name of your party. I'm reading it here. Liberal Democrats. Liberals and Democrats have to support a democratic vote. A large mandate, largest mandate in history, once in a lifetime, according to Vince Cable.
So there have been several elections since then. I stood on a manifesto in the 2024 election that had very clearly our approach to a customs union in there. I am fulfilling the mandate that the voters of Hazel Grove constituency gave me in pushing this government to take a more sensible, more pragmatic approach and look at those countries who are not members of the European Union but do have a customs union. I mentioned Turkey. There is no, as far as I'm aware, clear plan for Turkey to join the EU. But what they have taken is a really pragmatic step to make it easier to trade with the European Union. It's our biggest trading partner, and all of the other deals that the government has struck since we've left the EU pale into insignificance in terms of the scope and the scale.
Michelle Dewberry. This is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast, and it's staying cold over the next few days. Very cold tonight with widespread frost and ice and further snow in places as well. A cold northerly flow across the UK Arctic air, bringing in that bitter weather across much of the UK. For this evening, temperatures already below freezing for many of us. Heavy snow showers across northern parts of Scotland and Amber Met Office warning for snow here. We could see another 20 to 30 centimetres falling through the night into tomorrow morning. Elsewhere, icy stretches, wintry